Hope you're making it time. Hi, Amy.
Hey, you can go. Yeah, good.
How are
Are
you?
you gonna do our fees tonight?
You ready? Good. I'm going to call the Alton Budget Committee meeting to order, July 25th, 2011 at 6:30. We'll do the roll call. Starting with my left.
Lynda Goosens.
Mark Dekoff.
Steve Miller.
Roger McDonald. Doug Kirkpatrick.
Barbara Howard.
Lauren Cobb.
We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take a moment of silence to recognize the passing of Pat Fuller. Thank you. Do we have any public input? There is going to be another session of public input later on. Approval of the agenda. The only thing on the agenda is the Alton Central School contract.
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Aye. Lynda, you're going to present it?
Yes. You should have in front of you the cost items, and actually there's 2 pages. One is just the cost items for FY12. On the second page, you'll see what was proposed the last time it was voted on, which was March of 2011 when it did not pass. And this was brought back because the next article said that the voters were willing to have a special meeting.
Now, was that the next article, or was that included in the...
I think it was the next one.
The next part wasn't.
Was it, it was 2 separate articles?
2 separate articles, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it passed 454 to 342.
I'll just hold that over here so you can see it. Sure.
And so as you can see, there's a savings over last time.
But it's still going to have the changes that were handed out from the difference between the 2007 and 2010, where the retirement or the at the end was only 8,000. You're still increasing it to 10.
All the language will be the same as the previous article, the previous one that is in effect. We didn't do any language at all.
Right. So the 2007 to 2010 was only 8,000. So it's increasing to 10.
No, it's whatever was in the last one that passed. Whatever the last one that passed was is what the language is.
2009.
Huh?
2009.
So what is it now? That's 10.8.
Should be what's in here.
Well, I don't know if it's that on this one. Yeah. 10.8.1.
The maximum benefit is 10,000, so that must have already been in.
No.
Mr. Chairman, the original contract that this is ultimately going to replace was for 9,000, and this one is for 10,000.
So that's already been voted in.
No.
And then,
Yep.
and then he's referencing what is the difference between the 2007 and 2010 contract system here. So Mr. Miller's originally considered it was at 9,000, we're proposing 10,000, as has been in previous proposed contracts.
Yeah, we can if
I have a question. When we go to 2.1.5, these are essentially, this refers to a $500 stipend annually for team representatives. How many will there be? How many on the team?
Five.
5 says $2,500, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Wait a second, Steve. I don't see that in the 2007-10.
No, that's new.
That's new. Absolutely no. I was getting to that.
That's not a mistake.
You want copies of this? This is mine from last time.
This-
There is, for the record, I'm looking at the Alton School Board contract effective September 1st, 2007 through August 31st, 2010, which this contract is intended to replace. There is no 2.1.5.
Okay, this contract right here is the same contract that was voted upon in March with these changes. So when we went back to the table, the only thing we talked about were cost items. So I did misspeak. It isn't one that has been ratified yet, but it's the same contract that we had already negotiated for the March vote.
Okay. So there's an additional $2,500 to add to the cost of the contract, correct? That's not reflected
Well,
in this paper
okay,
here?
well,
Is that
depends on
correct?
how, okay, it depends on how you look at it.
Should it be in here?
Well, it shouldn't be in there because this is the same contract that was negotiated for March.
So this is the same one that got voted down?
Same one that got voted down.
You just keep bringing it up until it passes, or?
Well, the thing is that that's why we went back to the table with, and talked about the increase as far as, the 1% one-time only increase against the individual salary. So we went from the 1.4 to the 1% one time. So all these cost items that you're talking about are not going to be on here compared to the last contract in effect.
Right, but the contract that they're hoping to pass is to replace the 2007-2010
Yes,
contract.
yes.
So to compare apples to apples, I compare this contract to the 2007 contract, and we know what the additional costs really are, right?
Okay? Well, that's not what was done here, so.
Okay, so it's fair that we should add a cost of $2,500 so far to this paper right here, correct?
Yes.
My
Wait a minute.
point would be
Wait,
this.
wait.
No, take the public input. She's the business.
Kathy O'Danis, business manager of the Alton School District. This, I believe, was discussed the last time around. This is currently in the operating budget. If we were to put it as a cost item and have it in the operating budget, it's double budgeting. It's just this 2.1.5 is now moved into the master agreement. Instead of it being a stipend position in the operating budget, it's moved into the master agreement. The funds are already allocated, appropriated in the operating budget, so we can't put it in both. That was a discussion I believe last time around.
Do we move it over to make the contract, for the contract to look more favorable, so we bury it in the operating
I
budget?
can't answer that one.
Instead of putting it out to the people for the full cost of the contract?
I can't answer that question. I do finances, not.
So can you explain to me, at what point, just so that I have this straight, we have a proposed budget that is not ratified, correct?
You mean an agreement that?
Yeah, correct, the
Yeah,
agreement.
okay.
And then within that agreement that has not been passed by the voters, there's a cost of $2,500, and somehow that got shifted into,
No,
how does that work?
it evolved.
It's evolved.
The operating budget has stipends, as you know, for various different items for the school district.
Right.
right now, that's where the monies are situated, and it's labeled in there that there are team stipends, and the dollar amount is in the operating budget.
But was it moved there because it's in that old contract? So was it moved there because you didn't get, because the contract failed?
I can't answer,
Or
no.
was it there to make the contract look more favorable to the people, and you're burying the cost in the budget?
No, I can't answer that question. I'm just saying properly where it's budgeted is proper. It started out before it even was brought to the board or brought to the table to be placed in the master agreement, that stipend to be in a master agreement for the teachers as team leaders. It's always been in the operating
So
budget.
has the cost of the stipend changed and the amount of team leaders changed since the last ratified contract?
No, it's not.
It wasn't in a ratified contract. It was in the operating budget. Two separate entities.
It's always been in the operating budget?
Yes, it has.
So then it comes up in the contract, but yet it's really part of the budget?
Because it's in the budget, we can't put it in as a cost item in a one-year proposed
So that was,
new agreement.
So are there other items that, within the contract or the budget, that this also falls into that kind of evolving?
That's the only one.
No, this is the only one as of this point in time. You're welcome.
My question is this.
For her?
Pardon? No, I haven't.
Okay.
Well, my question would be this.
No.
We have an agreement, a proposed agreement here with the teachers. They had a proposed agreement that was voted on March 11th, or March.
Yep, March 8th, 2001.
As far as I'm concerned, whatever got voted on March 8th no longer exists. So using that to compare that to this is just terrible. I mean, what's the sense of doing that? That agreement basically never existed. It's null and void. It doesn't exist. Those numbers shouldn't even be brought up. We should be talking about this as opposed to the agreement that they are still working under. Not the agreement that was brought up and failed. The agreement that brought up and failed is gone. It never existed. Those numbers, we shouldn't be throwing them out and bouncing them around because all they do is confuse people and make things look different than they really are. This should be compared to what the agreement that they are working under now. Not the agreement that came up and was, or the potential agreement, proposed agreement that was voted on and failed. Once that failed, it was done. It was gone. Gone. Doesn't exist. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're correct.
All right. Steve, you have more questions?
Yeah, I do. Okay, I'd like to move over to the. Let's talk about the 10.6.1 for SAU committee compensation. I don't know if they call it a stipend here. But anyways, what I want to address now is 10.6.1. Now, on the originally, the stipend, thank you. Originally, it was figured out at, 3.75% of the base salary. And that was changed to 0.1% of the base salary, and that's equated to an hourly wage, correct? Now, when I did some figuring here, let's take an average salary of $40,000, for instance, for a teacher. That's their base, just a nice round number. Okay, a base teacher, right, would therefore be paid at a rate of $40 an hour for this committee work, correct? 0.1% of the base salary equates to the hourly wage.
It's the base salary, period, not for each teacher.
It's step one
track.
No matter who they are, where they fall.
So it doesn't matter, it's not their base salary, it's the base salary.
Okay, it says,
What does it come out to?
excuse me, sorry. It says hourly rate for committee stipends will be determined by multiplying 0.1% of the base teacher's pay.
Base teacher's base, not their base, the base.
Okay, so what, so you're saying it's the very first number over?
33.
Yeah.
This, for the way this is written, it's the teacher that you're, whoever's doing it.
That's the
No.
way I read
That's
it.
the way I take it.
Oh, that's why language probably has to be changed, but that's the way it's written.
Has an attorney, okay, this particular statement? Okay.
Well, when we negotiated, that's the way both sides interpreted it, because that's the way it was written before.
Okay, anyway, so that would equate to about $33 an hour, correct?
Correct.
Okay. A $40,000 teacher makes $19.23 an hour. That's the base pay for a 40,000 teacher. So essentially, pardon?
What do you mean by that? What are you going on, 40 hours? Where are you
Yeah.
coming up with that number?
You multiply it times 2,080 hours. A 40-hour work week times 52 weeks, because they get 26 bi-weekly paychecks. That's how they get paid.
Yeah.
So unless you want to use 9 months or the actual days that they actually work, to figure it out. But what they do, what a $40,000 teacher makes $19.23. So a $33,000 teacher, off the top of my head, let's say makes $16, $17 an hour. So they go from $17 an hour to 33. Essentially, they're getting double time. They're getting paid double time for this committee work. And
Well, Steve, I mean, if you're going to go apples to apples, they're getting 1,500 bang, whether they did an hour or 16 hours. Now they're getting paid by the hour.
oh, I
So it's a
understand.
big savings.
I understand that there's a savings, okay? But when we're looking at the entire picture, to get paid double.
But Steve, I mean, who's to say that it's going to be that person at the 33,465 that's going to be doing the committee work? I mean,
Okay.
if you're going to do apples to apples, let's do apples to apples.
Okay.
Well, that's the only one you're gonna
Okay.
pay the committee work, so it's the 33, ain't it?
No, that's what it's based on, Virgil. That doesn't mean that that person sitting in that spot is the only one that's going to be on the committee. You could have a person at 62,532 who's sitting on a committee.
Mhm.
And they'll still get paid $33 an
They'll
hour.
still get paid $33.
Okay, how many people will be on this committee?
Depends on the amount of committees that we have and the amount of people that are needed. That could vary.
So this is open-ended then?
Yeah.
Well, could be, but if you go with past precedent, I don't think we have that many committees set up. We have to, by law, have a professional development committee and a technology committee.
Okay.
So those two we know of.
Mhm.
And then it depends on whatever happens after that. And before a committee is established, usually it has to come to the school board. So it's not like we're going to have.
I have a question.
Okay, so who negotiated the contract on behalf of the Alton Central School? Who on the school board negotiated the contract?
This one?
Yes.
This one right here that
Yes.
we're going to be doing.
What we're doing now.
Krista and I.
Pardon?
Krista and I.
Okay, Kristen, okay, how much did you, when this came up, 10.6.1,
Can I tell you first of all?
yeah,
This isn't the one. The only thing that we negotiated this time, the only thing we spoke about were these money issues right here. So then, if you're going to ask me again, then no, I did not negotiate this contract. That would have been Terry and Jeff.
that would have been who?
Terry and Jeff.
Okay, and so what I'm interested in knowing is how much money is budgeted for 10.6.1 for the upcoming year?
That would be a question to me, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's based on 256 hours.
Right? And that's the maximum. We cannot go to 257?
No,
We cannot.
no,
Okay.
And what have we usually paid out per year?
not all that amount.
Can I ask a question? Back in 2.1.2, it's talking about part of professional responsibilities The teachers may be required to remain after dismissal of students for a period of time not to exceed 1 hour. Is that not a time when they could be doing their committee work and then that would be included as part of their day rather than having to pay additional fees?
That's not, I mean, this is a different committee, I know, but the committees that the people are usually on is usually different from this, meaning that it's something that requires more work. This is usually staying after to work with kids, doing your planning, doing your copying, doing all those kinds of things. The committee meetings are when they meet together for a specific purpose. Usually there's some research that's involved and there's work to be done.
Thank you.
I just multiplied $33, just a round number, times 257, so we're talking about $8,481.
And know that it has never been paid out that much, though.
Pardon me?
It's not that much money, as far as I know, has not been paid out.
Okay. Now, when I look back at the contract for 2007 through 2010, there is no. Maybe there is. Maybe there is.
Are you looking at the same one?
Okay. It says here, that the original one, that the agreement will convene a committee of 3 staff members, etc. Did the original contract have the same constraint of 256 hours, 257 hours, or was it less?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
The original contract, 2007 through 2010,
Yes?
there was no constraint on the amount of hours here either, okay? Do you have any idea what was budgeted at that time? Is there considerably more committees now than there was then?
There have not been that many committees at ACS that I'm aware of.
I can't remember that far back.
That's fine.
Sorry.
I can't remember that far back myself. Okay, and the additional maximum bet, when we move to number 10.8.1, the maximum benefit was originally $9,000 to teachers who have taught full-time for 20 years at Alton, and the percentage 20 years was originally $9,000, it's $10,000. Is that figured in the cost here as well, this additional? So we should add another $2,000 to this as well, is that correct?
I
You
didn't
can't,
want.
because you don't know who's going to retire.
Right. At the point in time of negotiations, there was no teacher that had put in for retirement for this current new fiscal year that we're in.
Okay.
But I didn't want the item to be lost.
I understand why you did that, that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Well, we went over this thing about the $500 last year, what lengthy. It seems like it's coming up again, and again, I'll say the same thing. When you approve a contract, that's different than being in the budget. The budget, the school board can say, no, we're not going to do it this year. When it's in the budget, they have to do it. So there's a difference between having it in the budget and having it in the contract. There's definitely a difference there. And when the voters vote on this, they're saying this is a mandatory payment now, and the other way it's up to the school board. I don't see why this has come up again. We had this discussion. It's been like half an hour.
I wasn't here then. I don't know why it got put into the contract. I thought it got put into the contract per the discussion.
I have a question that's a little bit off of this topic, but when the vote is approved for a special meeting on your contract, does that automatically include a special vote, a day of voting? And
We have to have
that's the meeting? You have the meeting and then the vote follows?
Right. the deliberative session, and voting at the group.
Right. Yep.
And who pays for that?
The town.
The town pays for the special
Or
board.
the school, it's in the budget for the school.
It's in the budget for the school.
Right, yeah. It's paid out.
Questions, Chairman?
Yeah.
Lynda, I'd like to direct you, please, to point 4.3.6. Okay, the original contract states that all funds not encumbered by June 30th will be returned to the school district. And this has changed to, as of May 31st of the contract year, professional staff members who have exhausted allotment of reserve professional development monies, which I believe is $2,000, may apply for funds up to a total of $1,500, additional reimbursement from the budget of unencumbered professional development funds for graduate level courses, etc. And when negotiating the contract, approximately how much do you feel was additional dollars was being budgeted for this particular line, now that it's gone from $2,000 to a potential $1,500?
Well, none will be additional because we never used that line. First of all, I don't think we've ever used that line fully, and then we've also changed it now to a side fund,
That failed, unfortunately.
Oh,
No,
like we were setting up for prospects, we tried to do that, but I guess it failed. So, because every time we get hit with the, why do you have so much leftover money at the end, and a lot of it is because the teachers don't use this one.
No. Our point was, if I remember, and I'm not speaking for the budget committee, but as a member of the budget committee, because it was so overfunded, the idea wasn't to raise the amount of money that the teachers could get so they could
No,
spend all the money.
that's not what I'm saying either.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we tried to do the other way like prospects.
Sure.
So we wouldn't have to have the over budget.
Right.
So that's, I'm not saying they were giving them more money because they want to spend it all. But the reason that this went in there is because, as you know, sending a kid off to college, it's expensive. And the price of courses has gone up. And anyone who's attempting to get their master's has to put out a lot of their own from their own pocket. So this is basically for those kind of people, and that's the kind of people that you want to keep out of school. The better educated they are, we're hoping the better they will educate our children. So that's why we open this up, thinking that it's a win-win situation.
I'm not saying I'm against it or for it. I'm just trying to quantify the potential additional amount of $1,500.
Again, it shouldn't affect because the money is never, ever...
No, I know the money's there, but the balance always came back to the district, correct? The unencumbered funds came back to the district, and the ultimate beneficiaries are the townspeople. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so speaking from the townspeople, you know, that money that would not, now that we could not normally expect to come back because they're entitled to an additional $1,500, bringing their full benefit to $3,500. Okay, how much additional dollars is the cost in this contract? For instance, how many people do you have taking courses at ACS?
we have quite a few, but it's not a point of whether we need to budget more money. There is no more money to be budgeted. At May 31st, the superintendent will ask me how much money is left in that line that we budgeted. If I tell her nothing, that's it, end of story. If there's $1,500, then this would be the first time we'd ever done it. She'd open it up. People would have to submit right here for graduate level courses from nationally accredited institutions. The superintendent would have the approval to say yay or nay. So we're not going to go above and beyond the dollar amount that's originally budgeted.
I know you wouldn't do that.
No.
How many units times $1,500 that on the previous contract, if the previous contract was in existence, would come back to the voters?
Well, I can tell you from the end of the year that we just finished, that line only has $10,000 in it.
And how many iPad 2s were purchased after?
That doesn't matter.
But the thing of it is that, you know, what she just said and what you're saying is for college accredited courses, and this came up last year too. Graduate courses. This money is not restricted to just that. It is workshops?
The additional amount that
How
they're
many
saying.
people went to
yeah,
California
the
for
original
workshops,
2,000.
and that money paid for airfare and hotel stays. And we had a staff member that went to Florida for a week. So now we're not only doing our trainings locally, we're now getting on airplanes and traveling, so now you have meals and travel expenses, hotel. So this money, of course it's going to get chewed up because you've opened up the doors wide open for expenses other than college accredited courses which I, up until last year, thought that it was only accredited courses that teachers could take for professional development. So.
Is it true?
No, this says only for graduate, maybe.
Correct. She's talking about the original 2,000
Oh,
that they all
I
come up
understand.
with.
Right, yep, so then this 1,500 is restricted, and that's not going to change.
No.
Okay, so this $1,500 can be used for a course
Up to.
in Fort Lauderdale, for instance.
I don't know, I'm not the superintendent, it would be at her discretion, graduate level courses.
As the business manager,
Yep.
okay, you see that it is appropriate to use $1,500 from this line for workshops in Florida.
No, because it's a workshop and it's in Florida, it's not a graduate level course, it's not an accredited college. Most of them are living here in the area and working here on a daily basis. They can't go somewhere to take a graduate level course that usually consists of at least 3 weeks to 6 weeks time. They're going to Plymouth State, they're going to Southern New Hampshire University, or they're doing a hybrid or completely online.
How many ACS staff are going for the master's degree or their doctorate?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I do know that we had 3 track changes last year, which is up from 1 the previous year. So we've had a few.
Okay.
I don't know. There's a
Do
lot.
you remember how, there's a lot,
There's a
more
lot.
than 10?
Yeah, I would say more than 10.
Okay, so we're talking, $15,000. So what we're talking about intuitively is that the additional $1,500
We'll be in a way of the rest of
is equatable to about $15,000, which, in my estimation, I didn't make this up, so you set the constraints. But in my head, as a budget member, I'm going to add $15,000 to the sheet of paper too, as the potential cost, because this is $1,500 in this contract that wasn't in the other contract. That's just a statement. I wasn't asking.
Yep.
Can I ask one more question? Sure. So you said the balance in the unencumbered fund is $10,000 at the end of the year, but as
Past year,
of June 1st, what was the balance?
I'll have to go back and look.
Because that's typically when you look at the unencumbered funds, correct? Sometime towards the end of May.
Yeah, but I watch it at the end of June like a hawk to make sure that.
Could you get one?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have just a quick question on the contract. I don't know if you know the answer to this or not, but and I don't know which number it is, but a experienced teacher, however, whatever the definition of experienced teacher, is only professionally reviewed for every 3 years. I can look that up, but I remember that succinctly in here. And so my question is, when negotiating this contract, was it, given our current situation, considering not making any way in reading or math, was there any consideration to make this at least an annual event, for experienced teachers to be evaluated on a yearly basis, considering when we don't evaluate them, they seem to fall off a bit?
Steve, that's language, and we didn't talk about language, but that's probably
Okay.
something.
You only talk about cost.
But when you negotiate costs, for instance, I'd like to take issue with what you said. As an addition, off the top of my head, 3.4.2, reemployment. There was additional language put in that had nothing to do for cost there. And I believe there was about 3 or 4 items that were changed That had nothing to do with
From the March, wait,
5.1.1.
from which contract are you talking
The
about?
original contract,
Wait, this is the March
7 to 10.
contract.
2007 to 2010, the only one we're comparing this to.
No, but this one, don't forget, we didn't change any language from the March contract. Is that what you're talking
No,
about?
that has nothing to do with us.
The
Well,
contract
but what I'm
doesn't exist.
saying is, if you're saying that we're changing language here, we didn't change any language from the March contract. So
Okay.
there is language that's been changed from the 2010
Right.
or 2007. But when we went back to negotiate, because the voters said we could have the special meeting, all we discussed was cost items. We didn't get into the language, we kept the language from the one that had just been voted upon.
And you went back to the one that had been voted out and used that as a basis to renegotiate this contract, when what that contract basically did not exist.
Correct.
You should have gone back to the 2007 contract and used that.
It's up to the school board to go wherever they want.
That's right.
But as long as people understand what they
It's the
did.
same contract.
Yeah, my only point I was trying to make is that contract negotiations are give or take. You can give a cost for a qualitative
Correct.
clause,
Correct.
okay?
But what I'm
I
saying
don't want to be
is,
evaluated for 3 years, so I'll give up, and I'm saying this happened, but I'll give up X amount of dollars on this side.
okay, but what I'm saying is, if you're going to go back in and say there's been changes from the 2007, we chose, you're right,
Yeah.
that was our choice. We
Mhm.
chose to go back to the one that was just voted upon, and we worked from there and just
Okay.
looked at the cost. That was our choice, and that's what we did.
Okay. Thank you.
Have you got any evaluation on the price of what the future price is going to be with the spiking that you increased?
For the retirement.
Again, that was another lengthy discussion last year about spiking, and I was assured that we wouldn't have to worry about this, and sure enough, the state's not going to pay.
Right, but what are you
49%.
talking about spiking because the way, which one are you talking about?
The 9,000 to 10,000.
Oh. Okay.
10, 8, 1. That was the old contract.
Well, that's, I don't know if that's going to put them over that, what is it, the 215% or whatever, isn't there some kind of, they have to be, yeah, 125?
Lauren, the spiking provision, I don't know specifically how to call it properly, its legal name, with the retirement system stated that you cannot, I don't know the whole specifics about it, it's 125% of your last year's pay. That's been pushed off to July 1st, 2012, so the end of this new fiscal year. So this doesn't fall into this whatsoever, just because it's been pushed off. They're not acting on it until 2012.
But the governor said he's not going to, his budget is not, he's not going to have state reimbursement anymore. The state's not going to pay anymore.
To the district's portion, not towards the salaries that the teachers
But when you
receive.
put the spiking on, it's going to come up for the future. Everybody retires from now on. If you get the $10,000, we're going to pay that more money for till they die.
I would
Retirement
love,
date till they die.
I understand, I would love to get with you and sit down and go over the documentation that I've pulled off the New Hampshire website, New Hampshire retirement website. That spiking provision, I think there's been 1 or 2 superintendents in this state that have hit that spiking issue. The rest of it have been fire and police.
That's, because I know we had this discussion at Prospect too, and there was something that was put in, but I know they were saying over there too that it's really rare that you hit that.
Exactly. There's a calculator
And
that...
the way you pay it out too, it can be different. I mean, if you wait and pay it 30 days after a certain day, then it doesn't get...
120 days after.
You think you're going to pay more money, more retirement money for a person who makes more money?
Yeah, but
Okay, so.
it's not going to be. But it's not going to be that the spiking one that you're talking about. I mean, obviously, the more money somebody makes, the more. Yes, but that's not the spiking issue that you're discussing. That's a whole different thing.
Yes, it is. You're giving them this
But that
money
doesn't,
is gonna count on their retirement.
right, but
You
that's,
bump this up, it's gonna make you pay more.
okay, but that has nothing to do with spiking. That's what spiking thing was.
He thinks by raising that dollar amount could possibly hit the spiking threshold.
I don't,
It's not.
You give a lump sum at the end, it's called spiking. When you give a lump sum like this, it's spiking.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
you put in the overtime that the police work down, directing traffic added into their salaries to the retirement, it's spiking.
okay, right, that's the way it's labeled, but there is an actual provision for a spiking, I mean, there's an actual provision that they've talked about at the state. If you hit a certain amount of that 125% cap, then there are penalties.
It's in flux. The legislature's been working and chewing on this. She just said it's going to be 2012. You put in money now, it's going to bite us. In the future, there's no doubt about it. It's going bankrupt. How do you think they're going to get the money? I don't understand why people even consider that with what's going on in the political arena right now.
There is a calculator on the New Hampshire
Right now.
retirement website that I can plug all those numbers in for each particular type of a person with whatever cost items we are looking at increasing. We've never, no, that's retirement, that's our district portion, that's a different issue, different part of New Hampshire retirement. And we,
But even that's
Yes,
gonna go
well,
up.
yeah, okay, Lauren, I understand what you're saying, yes, we'll be paying more, but we will not be paying the spiking penalties. That's two different things. Because there are penalties associated with the spiking of going over 125%. There's big penalties associated with that. We're not at risk of doing that. But yes, of course, if you give somebody more money, you're going to have to pay more in retirement. I agree with you there, 100%.
Any more? Want to open it for public input? Any?
Peter Keane, Blackpool. I have a question. I only have one page, but are these the only things that were negotiated?
Yes. Only cost items. From
Can you sit down and
I
speak?
can't sit down and get that bad.
Oh.
From
Here's his name.
Peter King.
K-E-E-N.
Thank you.
Well, Blackpool. Well, I was expecting these negotiations would also look into the, like, healthcare, for instance. Right now, we're paying 91% of the healthcare, us being the taxpayers. Some of us aren't voting taxpayers because we live on the lake, but I get to vote. So I'm trying to vote for some of those folks too. So my question is, it seems to me in this economy, and don't throw out this private business about private industry paying all this health care for, because that hasn't happened in 20 years. 91%, we're getting gassed, okay? You should be paying 20% of your own health care. And if you get that on this contract, we're out of here, okay? Start stepping up to the plate and understanding that the gravy train on the lake is running out of gravy. That's number one. Number two, I have a concern about achievement at the school, at the Alton Central School. We pour significant dollars into that school in salaries and in what would be considered facility management, or lack thereof in our case. Now I think that the one thing we don't seem to understand is what are the achievements there? It's my intention to find out, and I think the answer to that is in SAU 59. I intend to go there and get the resume of Mrs. Bonnie Jean Couris and all the letters of recommendation that were on taxpayer stationery and find out just exactly what the achievements were at the Alton Central School during her tenure that would garner her a new position, step up in life, I hope for her, and then we'll be able to understand what exactly is taking place at the school. We know what's taking place facility management-wise, and because that's obvious. So I would think that that would be a place to start, and I'll do that for the taxpayers. Thank you.
Any others? Okay. Public input closed. What does the committee want to do? Yep.
I make a
to be part of it.
Okay, I make a motion that we accept the Alton Central School contract as presented.
Second.
Ready for the vote? Discussion?
No, we have to have this.
Yeah, discussion.
Okay.
So are you supporting, are you saying the 523 is the correct number with that motion?
I made the motion for discussion purposes to bring it up.
It has to be in the positive. You can't motion negative.
Okay, since you asked the question, Warren, I do have a couple of problems with the contract. Okay. First of all, I don't think as presented by the school board, it's an accurate reflection of the total additional costs that the voters can expect to pay. I think these, we'll take their word that 10.5 is correct at $25,880. That 10.6 is correct at at a reduction of $2,358. The total estimate of $23,523 is still incomplete. I believe you still have to add $2,500 in terms of 5 people at $500 apiece for stipends, just by shifting it over to the operational budget. That doesn't mean we're not paying for it. That doesn't mean we're not paying for it. And the contract locks it in that we never cannot pay for it. We'll never have a chance to take that out of the budget ever again. So that was taken out of the voters' hands, so I think you have to add the $2,500. I think you also have to add, at a minimum, and it's probably on the low end, $15,000 to improvement and the development, which is $1,500 times 10. It could be 8, but it could be 12. It could be 15.
She told you that the max that was in there this year was 10.
10?
And that's what was in there, was 10 at the end. So it could go over 10 because we don't have any more. So it can't go over 10.
Can't go over 10.
Well, not this year.
Yeah,
Depends on the year.
Okay. Okay, so let's call it, so we call that $15,000.
But this year, if you did it, it could go over 10.
Pardon me?
You're going 15,000 or 10,000?
15,000.
But it couldn't. be 15.
I'm calling it, well, the way I see it, it's $1,500 additional per person over and above the 2,000. So it's
If the
$1,500.
money is there.
I understand the money.
So the money that's there now is 10.
But the money based on the old contract would normally come back.
Okay, but the money that's there is 10. So how can you spend 15,000 if there's only 10,000?
What do you mean the money is there is 10?
You can only spend what the unencumbered fund in that line is. You can't just go from
Okay.
anything.
So there's only 10,000 left.
Only 10,000 right now.
In the unencumbered line.
Correct.
We don't know from this year's budget.
Could be 4.
And it
So
could-
what are we going to guess? I mean, it could be $1.
Okay.
So I say we put $1 on that one.
Okay. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to use a worst case
It should be
scenario.
50.
I'm going to use a worst case scenario on behalf of the voters and use 15,000.
Well, that's, yeah, I mean,
No, that's okay. We can have a difference of opinion. Okay, I put the contract at approximately $41,200 and $200 and change. I don't think this is the time that the teachers deserve an increased contract. If you would have shown me an incentive contract, you know, that said, you know, the teachers who did well with kneecap testing, for instance, had an opportunity to be on had a better opportunity to be on a committee and make an additional X amount of dollars. If there was some type of incentive program for the teachers to do better than they're doing, I could have ate not only $41,000, I could have ate $150,000 quite
so
frankly.
can we put some of that money then towards the kids and say that if you do well on your kneecaps, we'll give you like coupons to McDonald's, we'll give you this, so the kids will have the buy-in and do well on the test too? I mean, if you're going to blame it on the teachers, if If we're gonna just go by test scores,
Right, you have to.
then you gotta even the playing field.
Okay,
Well, the teachers are the ones teaching the kids.
But if the kids don't buy into it, if I put a test in front of you and you don't wanna take it, you gonna do well?
Okay, so what you
Just look to make them want to do well.
So what,
Wait, how do you make them wanna do well? Go ahead.
That's by being. That's what we teach them
Okay.
okay, so what we have is our kids are more challenged than any other kid. What you're saying, our kids are more challenged than the surrounding
Can
communities.
you tell me places that are making, if we're just gonna go on scores, then nobody's getting raises anyplace.
Wait a minute. What does scores have to do with the cost?
Okay, it's very simple. This is in effect a raise to the teachers.
The cost of living.
And what you're doing is, and you're giving a raise for poor performance.
No.
I understand giving a raise
That's not true.
for no,
You're
for,
giving a cost of living raise for work performed.
there's no cost of living here. There's no COLA. This isn't a COLA.
That's what it's ending up, that's all it is ending up being, is a cost of living raise for working.
Well, that's part of what the
Then you
people
have to
write
say,
about
put a
before.
COLA, then why don't you call it a COLA if that's what it is?
It's a 1%, one-time increase,
Okay.
like $500 per teacher. Which has not, this is the, third or fourth time that it's come up, and
That
they've
was-
been denied it now for this much. So,
When we were against this last fall, that was part of what people were screaming about too, was raises and adding more money, asking them to go the year or whatever until everything turns around a little bit, without getting raised, without getting it. And you took a contract that was voted down by the people, and you're trying to slam it down their throat again.
no, that's why we did,
Yes.
that's why we worked with
And then they
the,
complained about the language and the raises. And the language is still there, and the raises are still there. So you're trying to slam it down their throat after they said no. So we'll have a special election, and we'll put it in when people, not a lot of people are around, we'll try to slide it through. And that's just what we're doing.
no, that's.
Oh, yes it is. Oh, yes it is.
All of those.
That's your opinion of what we're doing.
All of those comments aside, Social Security hasn't had a COLA.
Nobody's had a raise.
Whoa!
Well,
We gave the town employees a cost of living raise last year.
after how
And
many
they
years
also
of
went
not
3
having
years
it?
without it.
Okay, these guys have gone years without it
1
as
year.
well.
They went 1 year without a cost of living raise.
The other thing too is that, you know, it's sort of like, Mark, when you, okay, we look around to see what other towns are doing, and we do that comparison shopping, and you know what, we're looking at right here, right now, this is our, what you say with the snapshot in time, and whether or not we did something last year, things are different this year. So if you look at what's going on in the economy right now in this year, and that's what I'm focusing on when I base my decision, is the economy, black and white.
That's fine. So when people go and vote, that's what they're going to base their opinion on. That's
And-
why it's a
and I think-
democratic system. I mean, go to the
Right.
polls and
That's right.
and vote. That's all we're asking.
Right.
Okay?
In
They're
my
asking for a raise for the work that they've done.
In my opinion, even if we went with your numbers without adding anything in like we wanted to do, if we just went with what you, I don't think the taxpayers are prepared to pay that.
And
I don't
that's,
think
yeah,
they can do that.
that's why
That's
it's
my
for them to
opinion.
vote. Yes, I agree with you 100%. That's up to them to vote.
Well, I'd like to congratulate the school board because I think you did a wonderful job on the memorandum of agreement for the one-time payment. Because, I see, no, they give them 1% for 1 year and then it goes back. So, I'm not gonna throw the whole baby out with the dishwater, the wash, but I can't agree with your numbers. I think you should put in that $500, like we said last year.
Well, I mean, I wasn't here for that. So where do you want it? Do you want it in the budget and then it's in the budget and people are saying it's hiding there, or do you want it in the contract? Where do you want it?
But when the voters vote on this, they should know the total cost of the contract. That's the
Okay,
thing.
so if it's in the budget, then you say when they vote on the budget that's hidden in the budget.
That
So
would be like telling me, okay, we're gonna put the oil prices in the contract
So
now,
where
so
does
we
it-
don't have to add it in.
where does it go then? Where does the $2,500 go? Where should it be?
Right here in your numbers. and-
No. Where should it be? Should it be in the budget? Should it be in the contract? Where should
When
it
it
be?
goes in the contract, it should be on your numbers to the voters.
Okay, so now if it were to stay in the budget, when we go to vote on that, people were upset about that, I heard. So where is it supposed to go?
Next year, it wouldn't be in your budget if this passes.
Okay, so if,
Right.
yeah, so then what is it? I mean, I guess I don't understand where this 2,500 is supposed to be, to make everybody happy.
When the voters vote on a contract and it says the $500 in here, it
Yeah.
goes in the contract cost
Okay.
prices.
Right.
If it's not voted on and it goes in the budget, then it goes in the budget.
It goes in the budget, right, but when it's in the budget, people are upset with that, because then they said we were hiding it somehow in there.
That's wonderful, they can be upset or not about it, but let's tell the voters what this contract does.
Okay, so let's just, if I put on here then 2,500 more, then everybody would be happy?
I would be,
Okay.
maybe not everybody else, but
I would be
be.
more happy.
Okay.
I would be. I'd be more
Yeah.
happy.
Do that, all right, put it on there then.
And again, it's a real sticking point to me, this increase in this longevity retirement bonus. Do you people know how much Kingswood gets?
No,
Maybe you better look it up.
a lot or a little?
A lot less.
A lot less.
And you keep increasing it, and it's gonna add on to our retirement costs, all that stuff is shifting down to us.
And let's just say you added $10,000 from professional development in here as well, because normally it would come back to the voters.
But that one I agree with Les, Steve, only because that is an unknown. I mean, I can see the 2,500, that's a known for sure. 10,000, you don't know if it's
Okay,
going to
then
be
why
one.
don't you take the last 5 years' averages, and you can say what the average is, and tell the voters, okay, this is probably what, nobody expects these numbers to be within $1.
Okay.
But you're gonna tell them, okay, the average with what's been happening in the last 5 years, it's gonna cost us another
Okay.
$5,000.
I think you should put the potential for the total cost, because when you vote on something, you have to know what the potential is, the total potential cost to the taxes. That's the honest way.
Yeah, I think that should be in there too.
What, and then if you return money, guess what? You come out looking good. The voters like that.
Okay, the only thing I don't know as far as, so DRA, it's okay with DRA and everything? I mean,
All these things are only our opinion, it's up to your school board to
I know.
decide whether they're gonna change it
okay,
or not.
I understand that, but also it has to be legal.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we could put that as a side note or something, and this
So
is...
how is that any different than you overestimating on any other given line item?
I understand,
It's not any different.
That's right, I just want to make sure it's legal. If it's not legal, we can't do it.
Well, these are just estimates.
Yep, I don't have a problem with that, I mean, I passed by this before,
Well, I give you credit, though, I think it was a great night. It was great, you did one time lump sum, it doesn't end up being standardizing, so, no, there is a plus on this contract, they have done it.
There is a plus.
Oh, yeah, they worked hard at
There's
it.
a plus on it.
I don't think that
There's
anybody
a
really
plus
understands.
on it. So we ready to vote?
Well,
Right on the line.
you kind of weigh the pluses and the minuses here, don't
I mean, are we looking at an answer for them by the delivery session as to whether we can do the other? Put those other cost items on there?
Do you want to take a 15-minute recess?
we? They need this.
Yes.
Correct.
Hey,
We'll take a 15-minute recess.
ready?
Call the meeting back to order. Do we have any more discussion?
The voters turned down the previous contract for $36,023 additional dollars. When I add up the $23,523, the $2,500 and $10,000, that comes out to $36,015. The voters spoke once. They turned down $36,000. We're coming back with $36,000.
Well, if you're going to add that to the 23, you have to add it to the 36.
Right.
Yeah.
You'd have to add what you added to the 23 to the 36, because those cost items really didn't change.
Okay.
I'd also like to point out, but every time we have a special meeting, it costs the taxpayers about $28,000 to open the polls all day, is what I was told.
2,800.
2,800? Oh, that's a big difference.
Oh.
Okay. So
Make sure you get that out there that it's only 2,800.
Okay.
I know.
Say that to the
Around
spike.
$3,000.
Yeah, Yeah.
Make sure that's updated.
Yeah.
Wow.
At least it got raised.
They probably wish they could get it out.
Yeah, well, you add it to that, you have
It's
to
all right,
add
we
it
can
to
do it.
Because that was in there.
So
It wasn't
Fine.
36, it was probably,
you didn't, all this stuff that was in, that you want to add to that is in here, so you have to add it to the 36.
Right.
So,
it would have
It's
been,
a lot of, it's more,
yes.
it's more.
and I was, in speaking with Kathy Louise, we could probably put that, the other costs that you're talking about, obviously we have to write it, make sure it's written the correct way, pass it to the DRA, and I don't know that it would be hopefully somehow on there.
Put it on the
Or we could
side.
yeah. Or maybe hand something out the polls, but, you know, whatever would be legal and correct.
Can you do that? Let the people decide.
Are you guys ready? Take the vote.
Oh, yes.
State your name.
Lynda Goosens, yes.
Mark Dekoff, yes.
Steve Miller, no.
Roger McDonald, no.
Doug Kirkpatrick, no.
Barbara Howard, no.
Lauren Cannon, no.
Fails. All right. Our next meeting, September 15th, 2011, at 6:30 at the Town Hall. I take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?